So things can always get better when two former friends fall out, but the stakes are very high in the case taken by Jonathan Keogh, a Kinahan hitman, against seeking access to transcripts of the trial of his once close friend, Thomas Nicky McConnell.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about you. You say that we're sometimes kind of friends. So I think if we were both convicted of murder, you would throw me over straight away.
Exactly. Well, we would be associates for sure.
Yeah.
As the term goes.
You would totally stab me in the back.
The coverall term.
Anyway, so Nicky McConnell, he was convicted. He was a 4-person convicted of the murder of Gareth Hutch. This happened in 2016 at the height of the Hutch-Kinahan feud. But because he fled to Turkey and they had to be extradited home, he was actually only convicted last year. So basically Jonathan Keogh, who was convicted a few years ago, him and his sister Regina were convicted of the murder of Gareth Hutch, and both Jonathan and Nicky were found to be the two gunmen who approached Gareth Hutch.
Yeah, because people will remember the CCTV of the shooting was leaked and it's been played ever since. You see two gunmen approaching Gareth Hutch as he's getting into a car in the North Inner City. In the flat complex where he was living at the time. A gunman fires and kills him at close range. Very violent and shocking murder. Now, initially, as you said, Jonathan Keogh was convicted, and he was, what we believe is that he was a hitman for hire, effectively. And Nicky McConnell was always a suspect. He was also part of what a sort of strange collection of criminals known as the New INLA. And they were basically acting as enforcers and guns for hire, and had been hired by the Kinahan cartel on retainer to carry out these murders. Now, Nicky McConnell was, as you said, he was extradited from Turkey and he was tried in open court. So reporters were there and reported on what was said. Yeah. But obviously there's some of this trial, at the very least, that he doesn't want to get into the hands of Jonathan Keogh.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jonathan Keogh is appealing his murder conviction now, and his defence are trying to get those transcripts, and their argument is that they think there's inconsistencies between the two's alleged roles and the statements around their roles, and they're basically trying to say, well, like, you know, if Nicky McConnell said this happened, then this proves that they weren't involved, they weren't together, kind of thing. So they're trying to get those transcripts, and Nicky McConnell's defence has refused that on the basis that it's sensitive information. And then Jonathan Keogh's team are trying to argue that, well, it's a public trial. So that's the argument going on at the moment. I think they're okay with two witness statements being handed over, but the sensitive information, I don't think we know what that is.
Well, we don't know exactly, because they say it would result. Nicky McConnell's legal team say it would result in a security risk to him, which is an interesting statement to make. Now, obviously, the trial was held in open court, and reporters will have been there, and there was copy constantly, but they weren't automatically there all the time. This, I suppose, is what people maybe don't fully understand, that reporters, because the courts are so busy, reporters can be in and out. Yeah. And if you sit in a court hearing for 6-7 hours, whatever that the full extent of that day is, you're probably going to file something like 800 words, which is really, a very, very distilled version of it. Now, there was not, during that trial, there was nothing that there was no restrictions on what was reported. So even though that's the public function of journalists, and that gets reported, but there's also this other system called DAR, which is a digital audio recording of the trial. And you can get you can apply for a transcript of that. Yeah. And now it's not automatic that you get it, because often people apply for it for various reasons and don't get it. But that would record, obviously, the full 8 hours, which is probably, if you see an article is something like 500 to 800 words, I mean, that would be, I don't know how long it would be. It would be thousands and thousands of words said over a day.
Yeah. So is it the audio recordings as opposed to, there's someone still transcribing in court as well?
Well, there can be transcripts or there can be audio. Yeah. I don't know exactly, but there is people transcribing, but you can also get a digital audio recording of the whole thing. But they're not automatically publicly accessed. And if they're not reported in court, even if they are reported in court, they might need the exact thing. Now, what sort of, you can speculate, but why would they pose a security risk?
That's a good question, because surely if it was said in court at all, then it's in a public forum. So I'm not a legal expert by any means, but would be, do you mean, are you trying to suggest that there was a bit of rap going on?
Well, no, I'm not. I don't know. No, I'm not. I'm not suggesting that because that's obviously too strong and put somebody at risk. But is there things that have been said in that statement? Well, there is, because Nicky McConnell is saying some of this information at least will put him at risk. That is what is being said in the High Court.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Nicky McConnell was interviewed by Gardaí on a couple of occasions. As far as I remember, he was interviewed before he went to Turkey, and obviously subsequently would have been arrested and questioned by Gardaí.
Yeah.
The exact role of at the time, Nicky McConnell, a lot of what he was convicted on was on the basis of the phone evidence.
Yeah.
There was a lot of evidence given about the movement of phones, basically placing him at the scene. Jonathan Keogh, on the other hand, was directly identified by a witness.
Yes.
She was somebody who had been living in an apartment where the men had at least been seen from, let's put it that way. And she had described knowing Jonathan Keogh, probably through, as far as I remember, through his sister Regina.
Yes.
But she didn't know Nicky McConnell personally. So she wasn't able to positively identify him. So a lot of the conviction resulted as a result of movement of cars, movement of phones.
Yeah.
A sort of more complex case than, Jonathan Keogh, I suppose, having a eyewitness was an important bit of it.
Of course, yeah, because when she was asked if she could identify McConnell, she said she was not 100% and that she was half and half, which obviously doesn't go beyond the doubts of, the reasonable doubt obviously would be there. So, it was relied upon then the phone evidence. But I suppose the question that you would ask, though, is, if there is sensitive information, why wasn't that? If somebody was saying something about somebody, that would have been, I know obviously journalists can't take down everything, and, you've been in court a lot more than I have, but at the same time, from my remembering of this case, the main things were the witness statements and then also the phone evidence and the traffic evidence. I don't think there was any kind of silver bullet in terms of somebody accusing somebody of anything.
No, but it's what makes a good story for a journalist and what makes a top line for a news article.
Yeah.
It can be different when you're in the middle of those operations.
Yeah.
They were both had an interesting background anyway, McConnell and Jonathan Keogh. Like Nicky McConnell is originally from Ballymun area.
Okay.
He would have he had well over 100 convictions, had been a player in the drugs trade in Ballymun. Certainly had I suppose run his own operation up there. Focusing in on sort of a street dealing operation in Ballymun, but had a reputation as a sort of a dangerous guy, really. And he had been involved in another feud in Ballymun from his early teens that had been very dangerous, and he would have associated with other serious criminals, such as members of the Dunn's gang. Jonathan Keogh, on the other hand, was from the North Inner City, and he had a conviction many years ago in connection with INLA offences, and he had certainly been involved in that kind of dissident activity at one stage. Simultaneously, there was other people who sort of linked up with these guys as well, including Eimear Cumberton, who would have been close to members of the Kinahan cartel, and they would have formed what got termed the new INLA. Another person who would have been linked in with them would have been a guy called Jared Mackin, who was originally from the north and had been involved in various paramilitary organisations, including the INLA, but had eventually relocated to the south and become involved in gangland crime, including in associating with the Keane faction in Limerick. But all of these guys would have come together, and it is believed that they were being hired by the Kinahan cartel really as muscle and as enforcers. They weren't members of the gang as such, even though we'll call them Kinahan cartel killers, but they were guns for hire, really. So Nicky McConnell and Jonathan Keogh would have been really, really tight friends, and we have many pictures of them together and hanging out and socialising. But it does look like something has gone awry, at least in this case.
Yeah, and I suppose what convicted him, as you said, phone evidence, but there was also emails linking him to other people involved in the murder. So maybe there's some kind of, I don't know if that's going to be something that they're trying to raise as an issue. Also, Nicky McConnell had used in his defence, which the judge described as a lie, because basically the gunmen escaped the scene in a Skoda, but they originally tried to get away in a BMW, and the BMW failed to start. And Nicky McConnell's DNA was found in this BMW, which was described as a getaway car, even though it didn't obviously work for them. And then Nicky McConnell then later said in his defence that he had sold a BMW to someone that looked very like himself, and this was an excuse, and the judge described it as a lie. So that they're the kind of bits that we know that we're used to convict him. Obviously, the phone evidence, the emails linking him to people involved in the murder. The witness evidence didn't really, as you said, wasn't able to fully identify Nick McConnell, and also the fact that they found his DNA in the BMW, which was supposed to be used as a getaway car. So I suppose with this will all have to come out. But yeah, I'd imagine it's, I don't know if they're in the same prison, but I can't imagine it's very nice atmosphere if this is the case.
No, it doesn't seem to be.
No.
Well, we'll come back to this when the High Court make a decision, and we'll continue to follow Jonathan Keogh's appeal as it goes ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eimear.
Thanks, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.